Hello and welcome to the Squeaky Bum Time podcast with Mike and Laurent. Mike's not here. He's on assignment, going to weddings, getting drunk, doing the things that Mike does. I am here alone in the garage. We are live, cross-streaming, cross-playing in many places. It's very exciting. I like to do the show live, especially when we're on an off time. I know no one's watching, but that's okay. I don't mind it. The show will talk about the great and powerful Community Shield. You know, the greatest non-eventful event of the year, and the Women's Euro. The season starts on Friday. The Premier League season starts on Friday with Crystal Palace and Arsenal. But Mike and I will likely chat about that. When will Mike and I chat about that? On Thursday, if he's back. If not, we'll give a little bit of a rundown for that. The first thing to cover is the Community Shield. What is the Community Shield, you might ask? The Community Shield is, in essence, the Super Cup for England. Usually it's played between the team that has won the National Cup, which is a knockout tournament, versus the team that wins the league. It's been going around. Usually the proceeds go to fund charities around, and historically it has not been an important game. It's become more and more important as we have narratives and people fighting about players and new and it's Liverpool versus Manchester City, which makes it a bigger deal. So let's go to the game. This game was all about seeing Erling Haaland play for Manchester City. He did not play well. I'm not too concerned, but it was concerning. He seemed a little stiff. He seemed not to want to finish his presses, if that makes sense. Like, he seemed to run to players and then slow down. Liverpool was sharp, probably on top of things for the first half an hour. City came into the game for the second half an hour, and then but Liverpool scored a goal in the first half. You know what? Let me just look at the full game, just because I don't remember it. That's how much I took it. I don't remember it off the top of my head. Right. So, Trent Alexander-Arnold scored a goal in the first 20 minutes. Really good goal on the half volley. Typical Trent Alexander-Arnold goal. Julian Alvarez in the second half, late in the second half, brought the game level at 70, and then Liverpool won on a Darwin Nunez header, faded to the on a Mo Salah penalty handball to Diaz. Fair enough. And then Darwin Nunez finished late. Very good, no problem. Game over. The cat is letting me know he wants to leave the room, and he will be let out. Go. Okay. One cat escaped. He's now running on the pitch of Main Road, and so he's doing all right there. Just switch one thing up. There we go. Since I don't have Mike, I can just put my own thing in there. But, it was more eventful just for seeing players play. Kevin De Bruyne looked sharp. Foden came on second half. He made a difference. I thought Jack Grealish was ineffective. This is a worrying sign. He tends to be ineffective. He really has to step up for City this year. There's a lot of players that are in and out of the lineup. He's being someone who's going to be relied upon. Haaland wasn't good. He wasn't making runs. And City just didn't, they looked like they weren't sharp yet. I do like Alvarez, and that's the great stuff. And then for Liverpool, they can be happy with where they are. I mean, they had a lot of preseason games. They did play, to be fair. They did play in fucking Australia, which is really far. And they get to lift a trophy and feel good about where their season starts. Listen, City and Liverpool, over 3 years, there's literally 1 point difference between them, maybe 3. So we're talking about teams that are very close. And if they won the league, it wouldn't be crazy. I mean, it can happen. They deserve to win another league. It's a great team. And so is City. We get ready for the season. City are playing West Ham. Liverpool are playing someone who I have to look up as I go. This is how the show goes, right? You just kind of search as you go and do a lot of preparation, making sure you know exactly what's happening with your teams. Liverpool play Fulham. So they will play the new boys. They're the Saturday early game, the conventional kickoff. That should be a win. Everyone's going to ease into it, and the season's going to start, and the whole thing's going to happen, and we're going to have the narrative, and who's going to win the league, and all these things that happen, and that's great. So that's where we are with the Community Shield. Anything else I can bring up about it? I didn't feel too good about it. It seemed some things looked good, some things didn't. Again, my worry whenever Nathan Ake plays for City was there. On the left side, teams tend to attack, especially when it's he and Cancelo together. They are a weak wing they are a weak side of the field, and everything was coming down that side from Salah. Although Salah, after the goal, slowed down. He wasn't as effective. It was nice to see Kyle Walker on the right. A lot of things looked good and moved the way they're supposed to. But just, the cutting edge, the connection between Haaland and De Bruyne wasn't there. Haaland missed one gilded chance at the end, one chance in the middle of the game. So, but it was different to see City playing with a striker, just that someone was in that middle channel just going back and forth in that space, because City never have anyone there. It's different. It'll mean the buildups are less effective, but it should mean that someone is in the box doing the thing they're supposed to do. So, and that's where that is. What else can I tell you about the Community Shield? Not much. It's not that important. There have been times when teams have turned down the Community Shield. If you look through the history of it, you get random teams playing in it. Like the game was played in Leicester's stadium. It was in the King Power, not at Wembley. Why wasn't it at Wembley? Why wasn't it at Wembley? Because the Women's World Cup final, the Women's Euro final was at Wembley, and that was probably the big game of the weekend. Germany versus England. City have a ton. Manchester City women have a ton of players on the English national team. Let me see. I want to get this number right because I have a point to make. Let's see. Oh, look at that. Google's got a whole thing that shoots. That's pretty funny. That was nice. The current roster has 1, Ellie Roebuck, 2, Alex Greenwood, 3, Demi Stokes, 4, Kira Walsh, who made the pass, Ellen White, Lauren Hemp, Chloe Kelly. The primary frontline players for the England national team are from Manchester City. So it's pretty exciting. And I have been following along on the City national team. So I really like watching England play because I do follow City women, especially at the later stages of it. I root for the laundry, and they look great. I really have an affinity for Ellen White, who usually was playing the striker position, but she's 33 now. This is probably her last major tournament, and it looks like Russo and Toom will take her place. But she ran her socks off, didn't really get the goals, but that's okay. Her and who's the other one? Her and Jill Scott were the two older players. Jill Scott has spent 10 years at City as our holding midfielder. Yeah, 10 years. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Yeah, almost 10 years at City, trying to hold on, and she played a key role at the end, and they both sort of hugged and made sure that they were represented. And I'm loath to sort of defend my team and its Arab ownership and whatever, but I do want to give another piece of important context and important information here. The English women's team was funded, and I want to give Arsenal a lot of credit, by players from Arsenal, who Arsenal invested early in women's soccer and were the flag bearer for the WSL and all professional semi-pro English women. But once the WSL was created, and I don't know how long it was, like 5-10 years, and women's English soccer became professional, Chelsea and Manchester City, the two teams that we think of as villains and their oligarchy, sport washing, whatever, You can say that, and that's fine. But frankly, those two teams spent the money, and it's a small amount of money. It's, you don't have to spend $50 million on your team because it's women's soccer. Your dollar goes a longer way. You're just telling players you can have a job. You don't have to have another job. We'll pay you 50 grand a year. These women are playing for regular wages, like normal people. They just happen to be able to be professional. That's all they ever wanted, right? They can say from, all through their 20s that they were making 80 grand a year, 100 grand a year, or whatever it might have been to play football like they wanted to. And Chelsea and Manchester City were the ones who funded that. And we can say what we want about Abramovich. You can say what you want about Manchester City. The fact is, England and its team owes a modicum of gratitude to those two clubs that saw the opportunity in women's football to brand their teams as their respective clubs, Chelsea and Manchester City, and by using their clubs and expanding the reach of their clubs with women, they grew and they took on PSG and they went to Europe and they tried to win the Women's Champions League. All the things that have been happening with Chelsea and Manchester City at the men's level, City and Chelsea have been going to war in the women's side. Chelsea almost won the Champions League last year with Emma Hayes, the charismatic coach who's been on the sideline for ESPN doing the commentary or doing the studio analysis. She's the sort of looks like Barney Rubble with a wig on, got the thick accent, but she's a real football lady and she loves football and she's so great at communicating the game to people. And she's the coach of Chelsea. And the coach of NYCFC here in MLS was the coach of the Manchester City women's team. So this is an investment that's been going around, and sport wash all you want, but we have to give credit. Those clubs saw the opportunity in women's sports and paid the money to professionalize those teams so that those brands and those shirts could reach new audiences, women. Okay? So I want to hear at least credit. And they both dragged their respective opponents into the game. Manchester United didn't have a women's team. It had been completely defunded. Liverpool still doesn't have a good women's team. And they're only funding it now. Like I just went through the team. I just went through the English women's national team, and there's not one Liverpool woman on the roster. There are 3 for Arsenal, 2 for Manchester United, and the rest are Chelsea and Manchester City. That just goes to tell you that the 3 clubs, actually, it has it right here. 4 Arsenal, 1 Aston Villa, 4 Chelsea, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 Manchester City, 3 Manchester United. So it's a big deal. And the goal scorer, Chloe Kelly, who emphatically charged around with her shirt off, is a Manchester City player. So it's Manchester City that's funding this team and scoring the goals. So I just want to call that out because I think it's really important that my club gets some credit. Whether Qatar has whether the UAE has human rights abuses or not, they, as a club operating in Europe and Western society, do value and treat women with respect. Whether they can do that in their own countries, I don't know. But I do know that Sheikh Khaldoon, who is the CEO of the City Group, it went to Tufts and is very American and very Western. And whether he can influence his country to be that way in the UAE, I don't know. But in England, he operates as a Western executive, however you want to take that. So that's my big take for the women. And I was really proud, and it was really great. And I think it means a lot. And I think England will play the women's team, and they'll be favorites or at least co-favorites to win the World Cup. That's coming up next year, which is amazing because we had all the backup of all these schedules. We're having this Women's Euro and then the World Cup again next summer. So there'll be a lot of momentum around women's football. And as much as we don't cover it all the time on this podcast, know that Mike and I follow along. We are checking it. We are monitoring it. When it's a big story, I try and bring it up. I like to talk about the Barcelona women's team. I liked because they were undefeated. They were incredible. We lauded them as the greatest team in the world. I like to check in on Ellen White and see how City are doing in the Champions League. I like when there's a Manchester derby and the girl and the women play each other. It gets nasty. Those rivalries come, and I hope that Liverpool women will rise up because Everton have done well. It's a place that Everton is hanging in there, and we'll see what happens there. So, other news around. So we had the Community Shield, which we handled. We talked about. There's a narrative around is Haaland going to be a flop? Can City play with Haaland? Let's temper that. I think he'll be okay. Liverpool, the same narratives. We're gonna fight again. We're gonna go again. Other pieces are around transfers and dealings. Chelsea's doing decent business, but seemingly striking out and missing and having Barcelona hijack things. They're still working through their structure of Burley, Todd Bowley, and Tuchel, and Tuchel's sort of being his frank German self, where he's making bigger issues, attacking Werner, saying his team can't win, and all these sorts of things. Then we have the Spurs and Arsenal feel-good narrative, where Conte making great deals, the team moving forward, and Arsenal just whooping ass. Gabriel Jesus in his last preseason friendly had a hat trick. The Arsenal optimism is rising and rising, which I like, because that means that it can fall and we can get some good Arsenal fan TV. It's not good that they're winning. It sucks. Our friend Martin Odegaard has been named captain of Arsenal. We expected that. We expect a big season from him. For someone like me who, follows City and it hurts me and I watch it and it's big and my team is pretty ho-hum. The stories aren't as interesting for City. When we lose, it's a failure. When we win, we're supposed to. Sorry, when we lose, we choked. When we win, we're supposed to. So we can't win either way. But for the other clubs, I think there's so many great stories that are flying around everywhere, right? We've got Arsenal getting back to Wenger levels with optimism, with a young team. We have Spurs with their professionalism and grit and drive, bringing in by Antonio Conte, pushing the team forward and trying to make winners out of them to try and be anti-Spursy. I know it doesn't mean anything, but these are narratives. They're not real, but stories matter, and that's how we refer to the team. We have the ongoing soap opera of Manchester United, who are not getting deals over the line, but they're not that good. There's no Frankie de Jong. What are they going to do with Ronaldo? They're making up stories that literally said, Ronaldo left the game early, when in fact half the team left the game early, Ronaldo being one of them. So they all knew this was happening. So we're getting a lot of the fake news stuff that happens. I mean, fake news happens in sports more than it does in real life. It's crazy. Like everything's fake. None of it's real. So we have that happening. And then we just have the season kicking off on Friday with Crystal Palace. And, we're not hearing that much about the other teams. And I'm sure as the season goes along, we're going to get a lot of new info. We just had a weird signing of a young player named Chikwamakwe. I probably ruined his name, from Aston Villa. One of these young players that won the U19 World Cup for England, just all of a sudden transferring to Chelsea. And that's a money thing, and it's weird. And so these are the kind of little on the margins moves that we don't really hear about, because they're the $20 to $15 million transfers for the teams outside of the big six, that they just kind of move along. But these players and these teams become part of the narrative. And I expect that as the season moves along, we're going to start hearing about more of them and more interesting things. Like, did we say that Jesse Lingard went to Nottingham Forest? That's kind of a big deal. Nottingham Forest has a really good window, have a really good coach. They're a new team. They bring the ghosts of damned United's, I can't remember his name, the coach from Nottingham Forest. There's a lot of history in that club. We have second year Jesse Marsh. He brings in two Americans, Tyler Adams and Aronson. Both play for Leeds now. So there's a lot of stories that we're going to shape and be part of the system as we go along. The relegation battle will start to come up really quickly, and we'll start to see what's happening there. And we'll go from there. And I think Mike will probably join me again on Thursday. But rather than go too long by myself and waste my breath, I'll just say, everyone be patient on Haaland. He's going to score his 20 goals. Congratulations to the English women's team and the Germans who played really well. Football did come home to England. This is a European championship, so it's a big deal. And lastly, I'd say your mother's in effect. Anyway, I have no very offensive things to say. Oh, I should talk about no. We'll tell more stories. Peace. The show is made. Goodbye.